There was a lot of things that shouldn't have happened. You just did the best you could and, you know, take it from there.
It's terrible. The men lose their lives before they have a chance to really live, you know.
I didn't hesitate to shoot or kill.
I mean, you get rewarded for doing that? I mean, for killing a bunch of people? No, I don't know about that's a reward.
Before the war, I was unemployed, and I got part-time jobs, joined the National Guard. I went through the National Guard, and at that time there were riots in Detroit, and that we were trained for riot control, and that was about it till the war came.
Well, I didn't join the armed services. I was drafted in May of 1953, and I was a draftsman at Crawford Door Company in Detroit.
I was sitting talking to a guy at high school, and he was going down to the recruiting station, and he said, "You want to tag along?" And I said, "Yeah, it'll be an experience for me," because I was going to be 18 before long. We both joined up, and the Navy promised me that I would be able to be in the hospital corps, so I wanted to be able to help rather than destroy or kill, and it worked out real fine.
I was preparing to study music, and I got the draft notice, so I thought I would beat the draft and volunteer in the Air Force. Of course, I was turned down because I think there was a waiting list, and I didn't feel I had that long. So I tried a couple of other branches of service, avoiding the Army. And then when I got turned down, because I had flat feet, so I said, well, heck, the Army's not going to take me, right? Wrong. The Army welcomed me with open arms.
I joined in January. So it was the coldest time of the year to be in Bainbridge, and you know, the winters were bad and got worse. I'll never forget, we had to be out on the field mustering, you know, fall in and all that kind of business, and we were freezing our legs off, you know.
When you're going through boot camp, they watch you real close. You know, the top sergeants and everything. They can make life miserable for you. But anyway, and then if you did something wrong, well, they'd make you do some rotten thing. Well, they looked up the books that we were going to go out that day and go overseas. And they said, there's one guy here, the top sergeant said, there's Joe Berman here. And he said, he's never got any damn thing against him. He must have been hiding someplace. So you know what they did to me? They made me go out in the woods chopping down trees when I should have been gone on my way home. They made it hard. But things like that. But they trained you good. They trained you real good.
I went to Fort Knox. I spent 16 weeks in basic training. Then I went to leadership school for 8 weeks. Then I went down to Fort Benning because I was going to be a paratrooper. Then I had an interesting sideline. One night while hanging around in town, I got a offer from a guy down there in town who was in the 3rd Army, by the way, to join the 3rd Army band. And I was really into music at that time, so I told him, yeah, I would try. So I quit jump school and tried to get in the band, and it didn't work out. So the next step was Korea.
weather in Korea in the wintertime, nobody should be able to go there. It's just ice cold, and a lot of things that go wrong. My feet are still frozen.
At night, the dew would come through the ground and through your whole body. We were sleeping on cots. The way I prepared to sleep at night was I had the cot and I put an air mattress on the cot, and then I wrapped the air mattress with a wool OD blanket, and then I put my shelter half around that, and then I put my parka on top of that, and I'd go to bed with my long underwear and a wool OD shirt and wool pants and socks, and about 2 o'clock in the morning you wake up and you're cold because the dew was coming up, and you just couldn't be comfortable. You always were cold.
I was in heavy mortar outfit, and I was a port observer, which meant that I spent a lot of my time out of the platoon itself and up on the front line. And the Greek battalion was over there, and I spent a lot of time with the Greeks. And I know Yahara in Greek, that's what I know. Plus the other words you learn, But and that was rewarding. That was really rewarding because I felt I was part of something a little bit.
It's an experience that makes a man out of you. Makes it that you're going to do things the proper way. So I was staff sergeant, and I had a couple of guys come into my unit, and I had to straighten them out, but they straightened out real fast.
I was assigned to the 24th Infantry Division headquarters, G2 section, the intelligence section, and my job was to check map overlays for minefield layouts and give the general of the division his password every day.
We had a flight deck right on the fantail of the ship. And when the helicopters would land there, and we would get them just a few hours after they were wounded, I would be called flight deck, and I'd get up there and I'd help carry them to the operating room or to wherever they were going. At night, I would be called to stand watch on some wounded person. And I'll never forget that experience. One of them died on my period with him. Another one lost his leg and regained consciousness during the night. Woke up and felt there was no leg there. He'd lost his leg. Quite an emotional shock for him.
During the last month of the war, we were involved in the Chinese made an attempt to take a hill we were holding, and it lasted 8 days. And our unit was firing support, and I was an observer, and I was spent 3 nights on that hill, and those were the only 3 nights I thought something might happen to me. Okay, and it was like sitting up. I spent most of my time inside of a bunker because I was doing everything with the radio. But you always had the feeling that some guy's gonna sneak up and throw something through the door. So there was fear involved in it.
The Chinese didn't have any pattern where they laid out their mines, and this was one of the biggest fears I had and fellow soldiers was stepping on a mine, because you never know where you're going to find them. So that was, we always documented where the minefield was, and we kept it up to date. One time we had a couple of guys that were digging a pit for all our garbage to throw into and then cover it up. And lo and behold, they hit a mine where they were digging. They killed one guy, and the other guy got badly damaged.
The one boy that I mentioned, a soldier that lost his leg, he was wounded on Pork Chop Hill. Pork Chop Hill was on the south side of the line, so that when they drew the parallel across Korea, they gave Pork Chop Hill back to the Koreans. And that bothered me, that here was this young man that would live without a leg, and he'd done it to capture that hill, and then it was turned back over to him. But that's the politics of war. There were rumors that that some of the Koreans, in order to survive, they would be on our side when we were advancing, and when the enemy was advancing, they'd be on their side, just to preserve themselves, you know.
And our mission was to find out, get information, because some of the people from on the other side wanted to come over. They were didn't want to fight anymore. And generals and with papers and maps and things, and we'd draw a map, or we would meet them under a bridge and so on, down the road a piece, and then 7 of us would go out there and talk to them, and they said, please take us back to your unit, because they didn't want to fight anymore either.
In Incheon, we built a tent city. Now there was a certain amount of prisoners of war, the Chinese prisoners of war, the communists, who wanted to give up communism.
But if we turned them over to the South Koreans, they'd kill them right on the spot. They didn't want to take them there, but that was their enemy.
So these were the people that we were preparing their tents and everything to come to, and they were going to be transported to Formosa and the nationalist China islands there.
It's terrible. Terrible country to fight in.
Now the night they signed the truce the armistice was the day they did it. The day they came by and told us, they said, well, you know, tonight, 10 o'clock, there'll be no more shooting, you know. And one thing about Korea, there was always noise somewhere. If it wasn't in front of you, it was off to the side. It might have been miles away, but there was always noise. And at 10 o'clock that night, it all stopped. And it was deafening. I mean, it was just, you know, we all popped our heads out and what's going to happen? If this is a fake, you know, all hell going to break loose, you know, but nothing happened. And that was telling, very telling to me.
Once I got out of service, friends of mine would come up and say, Harry, haven't seen you in a while. Where you been? You know, and Korea. You were in Korea, yeah. And what was it like? And you had to tell them the story. But nobody really cared. You know, World War II veterans received more acknowledgement because it was a type of war that was fought fairly, you know, where ours was, there was a lot of things that shouldn't have happened, and we could have changed, but you just did the best you could, and you know, take it from there.
I don't like people saying that Korea wasn't anything. They called it the forgotten war. But you know, when you're in a situation like we were in Korea, there's nothing half-assed about it. It's the real deal, and people need to remember that Korea wasn't. It was an undeclared war, but it was a war. You know, and we could have gotten killed, and a whole lot of guys. I think the casualty rate in Korea was as bad as it was in Vietnam almost. So don't tell me that Korea was, you know. And that's one thing I resent, that they call Korea the forgotten war, because we don't need to forget that, not ever. You know.
I wish that it all could be handled diplomatically. And personally, I feel that it's the failure of our leaders in the world that we have to have wars. It just doesn't make any sense what happens at all. It's terrible. The men lose their lives before they have a chance to really live. You know, they're young men. The wives and mothers and relatives of the dead. It's just awful that there have to be that kind of thing.
For some, it's a wonderful opportunity to educate themselves and become a mechanic or cook or what have you. So if they're lost, and especially like right now in our area, jobs are hard to find. Military would be a good substitute for time. I think for some people it would be a great opportunity to advance themselves and know what they want to be in life.
When you go in the Army, there's things that it teaches you how to be by yourself and get along by yourself and with other people. You learn that, and there's too many kids out here don't know that. They need to have some discipline, and you'll get that in the Army.
If you have to go, you've got to go, but you've got to take it too and follow orders and not make it hard on your officers or on yourself or your friends. And a lot of these people going in now, they're doing the right thing. And they have not a high school, but going to college when they get out, all paid up and everything. And they're good soldiers.